All right, UFC Fight Night, Fiziev versus Gamrot this weekend at the UFC Apex. Of course, the UFC has a tremendous card on Mexican Independence Day at the T-Mobile Arena. They go to Australia where Sean Strickland wins the World Championship. And after all of that, the UFC responds with a card in front of absolutely nobody. And that's the next three Fight Night cards are all in front of no crowd. You've got this card, of course, is Fiziev and Gamrot in the main event. Then I believe next is going to be Edson Barboza versus Jourdain. No, I think that's after, which is Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. Now, these main events are kind of Apex worthy, but this card, honestly, Fiziev Gamrot, you put this card in Poland, you put this, overseas in Europe, this probably does numbers, but of course the UFC's got to put it in Las Vegas, UFC Apex. Grant Dawson, Bobby Green, the main event isn't really star-studded, but the card's good. It could definitely sell out somewhere. You're telling me, again, you couldn't take that card to Tulsa, Oklahoma and sell out an arena? I mean, you definitely could. And then, Sudi Yusuf and Edson Barboza, that could sell. Like, you could put that somewhere. I don't understand the UFC's. They keep wanting to push the UFC Apex. It's ridiculous. You got to get cards outside the Apex. That's why I'm excited in December that they're going to China. They're going to, it seems, Minneapolis, maybe Ireland, Orlando, and Vegas. I think one of those is probably getting axed. I don't think it will be Minneapolis. I think it will be Orlando instead. But if you get 4 cards in front of crowds in December, that's exciting. However, talking about this card, Fiziev Gamrot in the main event, 11 fights on this card. Last week we went 6-3 in the card. Of course, you had the draw in the main event with Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso. And then, of course, you had we did get Edgar Chairez and Daniel Lacerda, right? Of course, that fight got overturned. So 6-3, it's okay. It was a solid week. So before we get into the actual card itself, going to the Contender Series, this week's Contender Series and last week was one of the first weeks in the Contender in a while where a lot of the favorites won. I think maybe if not all the favorites won on that card. This seems like another favorite heavy card. Your first fight, Igor de Silva taking on Jonata Silva here. Silva fighting out of Rome, Italy, or Jonata Silva fighting out of Rome, Italy, and then you got Igor de Silva fighting out of Brazil. See, for Igor, he has not fought in a year, but when you look at what Silva has done, he's had one fight 4 months ago. Then before that, he hadn't fought in 4 years. I'm going to take Igor de Silva to win this fight. I think we'll get it done in an impressive decision victory in the flyweight division. Next up at lightweight, we have got Kanyan taking on Dylan Mantello. Mantello, you might be familiar with TFFC. He fought at Eagle FC as well a couple times. Even though, he does have the experience outside the UFC, I'm going to take his opponent here. I'm going to take the Brazilian fighter against the Longo Weidman MMA guy here. I'm going to take Kanyan to win by knockout. Way better striking skills. You see what he's been able to do in Jungle Fight. Just fought 4 months ago over there. I'm going to take him to win with an impressive first round knockout. After that, you've got the women's fight here. Probably the most split fight for me, and it is on Tapology as well. You've got Talita Alencar taking on Stephanie Luciano. Going to be taking the favorite here in Alencar to win. Again, minus 305. It's hard to kind of pick against her. Going to take her by submission. Really good BJJ out of her. I think she's able to go in there and pick up the win over Luciano. I think she'll be able to get it done by second round sub. Again, a while back on the Contender Series, it was usually either really fun decision victory or dominant decision victories wouldn't get you contracts back, 3-4 years ago on the Contender. It was usually just finishes would get you a contract. Now it's kind of just you win, you're in if you look impressive, right? In some, if you look like you know what you're doing and you look like you can fight MMA, Dana White, if you win, is going to sign you. That's just kind of how the show works at this point. So I'm going to take Alencar to win that. And then here we go in the lightweight division. We've got Jacoby Jones taking on Daniel James Allen. You got the AK fighter here in James Allen. I can't pick against Jacoby Jones here. He's 6-1 coming off an LFA win just 3 months ago. I think he's a way better striker. I think he's got way more skills on the feet, way more tools. I think he's going to win this fight and get the contract at 155 pounds. So give me Jacoby Jones to win this fight. I think he gets it done by first round knockout. And then after that, in our main event, we've got Shamil Gaziev taking on Greg Velasco. 2 really good heavyweights. You got a 6-0 fighter here in the Viking King in Velasco, and then you got 10-0 Shamil Gaziev. Going to take Gaziev to win. He is obviously the big favorite, but both these guys, again, are really good heavyweights. I like both these guys a lot, but I think Gaziev, of course, is better. I think he's able just to outwill Velasco in this fight. I think he's able to win the fight by first round knockout. However, again, I think it's a really good fight. It's a big time heavyweight fight on the Contender Series in the main event. Okay, so got that over with. On to now this 11 fight card in the UFC Apex. You start with your first fight here. It will be Montserrat Rendon taking on Tamires Vidal. For Rendon making her UFC debut, she is 5-0. She does not have a finish yet. It is what it is. She's taking on Tamires Vidal in this fight. For Vidal, ranked currently as on Tapology as the 12th best women's bantamweight in the world. I don't know how that came to be. I mean, again, the UFC is very weak at 135 pounds, so I guess maybe you can say Vidal is kind of on the edge of being a top 15 fighter, because that's, again, just how bad the weight class is right now in the UFC. But for Vidal, of course, she's 1-0 in the UFC, her one win being a flying knee knockout over Ramona Pasquale. Now, it's a good win, it wins her knockout of the night. However, again, Ramona Pasquale, not the best UFC fighter in any sense of the imagination. This is a fighter who went 0-3 in the UFC, came in, lost to Josiane Nunez, lost to Jocelyn Edwards, and then lost to Tamires Vidal after that. For Ramona Pasquale, looks like she's going to be fighting in Invicta soon, I guess. I don't know what the future holds for her, but again, not the best UFC fighter. For Vidal, she was booked after that against Haley Cowan. Fight fell through. Now here she is against Montserrat Rendon. For Montserrat Rendon, what we have seen out of her, decent grappler, pretty good grappler. That's where she is going to win fights. She's fought in Invicta before, but man, I mean, just the resume has not been, it's not all that impressive. She hasn't done much up until this point in her career. I think it's an interesting signing, if I'm being honest, because her last fight is a win over a 4-4 Brittany Cloudy by split decision last year in Invicta. I find it a little bit troubling to say that warrants a UFC contract, but it is what it is. She's in the UFC taking on Tamires Vidal. I think Vidal's the way better fighter. I think, again, that is apparent on the line of this fight. You got -250 for Tamires Vidal. You got +205 coming back at you for Montserrat Rendon. It makes a lot of sense, obviously, because, again, Rendon, you know, if she's going to win fights, she's probably going to win them on the ground. She's going to try to get you down. She's going to try to hold you down. However, for Tamires Vidal, I think she's decent enough fighting off takedowns defensively. I think she's decent enough. And on the feet, again, that one fight that she has had in the UFC showed that, okay, she can go in there and, you know, strike for power. Obviously, we only seen her in the UFC for 3 minutes to this point, but did look good in those 3 minutes, knocking out, again, not that talented fighter, Ramona Pasquale, but I just don't really know how good Montserrat Rendon is, because Montserrat Rendon has not been all that impressive either. So I'm going to take the favor in this one. I think a lot of people are going to be taking the favor in Tamires Vidal in this fight. It just makes sense. It just makes sense that you would take Tamires Vidal in this fight. Again, the way more proven fighter. Montserrat Rendon, it's too much uncertainty around Montserrat Rendon in this fight. Yeah, the grappling game might be able to win her around, but still, I think Tamires Vidal's striking is going to be enough, and I think Vidal's defensive wrestling, defensive grappling is going to be too good. I think Vidal wins this fight. I think she'll get it done by decision. I don't think she replicates the knockout she got in the Ramona Pasquale fight, but I still think Tamires Vidal picks up the win. I think she'll get it done by unanimous decision. Our next fight will stick in the women's divisions. We have got Hannah Goldy taking on Mizuki Inoue. Yeah, Mizuki Inoue is still in the UFC. Just haven't seen her in a while. She is only 1-1, the only loss being to the former title challenger now in Amanda Lemos. I guess Mizuki Inoue is just going as just Mizuki now, but I'll still call her Mizuki Inoue. That's just because what I'm familiar with her as. But she'll be taking on Hannah Goldy in this fight. Surprise Goldy still in the UFC. This is a winner-go-home fight for both these fighters. For Goldy and for Mizuki here. Hannah Goldy 1-3 in the UFC after getting her UFC contract in the Contender Series in a fight where she looked really good. Again, really good volume in her one fight in the Contender Series in 2019. Looked really good in that fight. Came in after that. She loses to Miranda Granger. She loses to Deanna Balbizia. She beats Emily Whitmire, who has a losing record in MMA. And then she gets spinning back elbowed in the face by Molly McCann. For Mizuki Inoue, 1-1, comes into her first fight. She goes out there, she beats Wu Yanan by split decision over in China in August of 2019, comes back a year later, again, drops a fight in the Apex to Amanda Lemos by unanimous decision. It's a fight where Lemos gets a knockdown. Lemos just goes out there and outstrikes her basically throughout the entirety of the fight. That's what's expected, obviously. Lemos, a top 10 fighter in the weight class. And now you get this fight here between Inoue and Goldy. What has, Hannah Goldy really shown since that one Contender fight? I mean, I think her best performance, other than the Whitmire fight, where she goes in there, she gets the fight down, or actually Whitmire takes her down, then Goldy gets the armbar off of that. But I think probably her best fight, other than that, and her best striking performance has been in the Deanna Balbizia fight. I know in that fight, Balbizia goes out there and knocks her down, but it's a fight that Goldy sticks in there. She trades blow for blow with Balbizia. Again, doesn't win the fight, but I think it's probably her best output performance so far in the UFC. Obviously, in the McCann fight, she just kind of got overwhelmed at the moment, obviously. Again, this is another one of these fights. It's just tough to pick. You look at the odds. You got +205 for Goldy. It's not tough to pick because I think of the fighters. It's just because, it's tough to pick because you just don't know what's going to happen. You got Goldy at +205. On the other side, you got Mizuki Inoue at -250. Again, I have to probably, I'm going to take the favorite here. I'm going to take the fighter coming out of Japan and Mizuki Inoue. Again, though, a lot of uncertainty. She has not fought in 3 years. What are you going to get out of her? What are you going to get out of a Mizuki Inoue who has not fought in 3 years, against Hannah Goldy, who was 1-3 in the UFC, who has not been the best UFC fighter? I think you see a striking fight. I think, if anything, the ground advantage definitely does go to Mizuki Inoue. Will she go to it? I don't know. I think specifically, though, you'll probably see, I'll just be honest with you, a boring 15-minute striking fight that Mizuki Inoue goes up there and wins every single round of. She's just an inch better than Hannah Goldy throughout the entire fight. I think Inoue wins. She'll get it done by unanimous decision. Again, though, not one of the most, not one of the fights that people are looking too forward to on this card, but I'm going to take Inoue to win by unanimous decision. Okay, next up, we are going to go straight to the heavyweight division. We have got Mo Usman taking on Jake Collier. It's a fight that seems like Collier has to win to stay in the promotion for the former Ultimate Fighter winner and Mohammed Usman. He is still undefeated in the UFC. He's 2-0 with that win over Junior Tafa, where, man, it takes 2 takedowns from Mo Usman to win that fight. He gets it. He's got 12 minutes of control in that fight. He only has 7 significant strikes, but he still has enough, and he evades the power out of a Junior Tafa, because if anything, again, Junior Tafa has showed in his win over Parker Porter that, yeah, the guy's got heavy hands. I mean, if your last name is Tafa and you're a heavyweight, you probably have a lot of power, and that's exactly what Junior, just like his brother Justin Tafa, has. Now, Mohammed Usman weathered the storm. He won 2 out of 3 rounds in that fight. Of course, the 2 rounds where he got the takedown were the rounds that Mo Usman went out there and won. Again, when he got the takedowns, big moments of control in that fight. Again, 12 minutes of control in a 15-minute affair. A really good win for Mohammed Usman in that fight. He is 9-2 professionally. Obviously, you look back at the Ultimate Fighter season, beating Mitchell Seep, then beating Eduardo Perez. You've got the loss in the PFL going into the Ultimate Fighter season where he loses to Brandon Sales. He gets his back taken and he gets submitted. That's in the past, though. That's in 2021. He'll take on Jake Collier here, who's 13-9 and who is on a 3-fight losing streak. After beating Chase Sherman, I believe that was in a co-main event, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was. In a co-main event, he beats Chase Sherman. After that, he drops a fight to Andrei Arlovsky. He drops a fight where he gets TKO'd on the ground by Chris Barnett. And then most recently, he loses a fight by unanimous decision to Martin Budai. Collier, again, is part of that low-level heavyweight circuit that the UFC just has. And they keep scrambling these guys and keep having them fight different. It's just, again, we can go over it. It's Collier. It's Chase Sherman, who's no longer in the UFC. I don't believe so. But it's Carlos Felipe. It's going to be... I guess Arlovsky's kind of down there now because he's lost to Dontel Mays. It's just those guys, when not Ike Villanueva, he was when he fought heavyweight once, was in that ranks. I believe he fought heavyweight once. But I'm thinking of Roque Martinez, those guys. We go over this every single video, right? That's what Collier is a part of. Josh Parisian's in that as well, right? Again, Usman is not the most skilled fighter either. The guy is physically built. He's a strong guy who's got a lot of power and who can wrestle. Again, you saw that the big knockout finish over Zach Poundgut to win the Ultimate Fighter season. Again, the guy has got pop in his hands. He can put you out. Again, he was getting outstruck by Poundgut in that fight until he landed that one bomb. And of course, that's all it takes from Mohammed Usman. One big shot can put you out. But again, in his second fight in the UFC against Junior Tafa, he showed, well, he doesn't, he has more than just power. He can go in there and he can wrestle. So when you look at Jake Collier, you look at what Collier has done against wrestlers in the past. Well, the guy's not been taken down in the UFC in a very long time. The last time he was taken down, he fought at 185 when he fought Devin Clark back in 2017. That's the last time Jake Collier has been taken down. So it's going to be a huge, we'll see. Because again, it's either Usman's able to take him down and hold him down, or we're going to see a striking fight. And even in a striking fight, that's where I think you have a double chance here, basically, with Mohammed Usman. Even if he can't take Collier down, there's 100% the threat that Usman could just knock him out. Because I don't think Collier is the best striker. Obviously, it's the guy that's used to fight 185 pounds. He still has volume. He can still go in there. He can still blitz you. He can still get in your face. That's where I'd be a little bit concerned with Mohammed Usman if he's not able to find a takedown. However, I think he's going to be able to find a takedown. And on top of that, I think Usman, again, his power is going to hurt Collier as well. Collier will be worried about the wrestling game of Mohammed Usman. He's going to drop the hand some. Usman should be able to strike when he needs to as well. And that's why I really like Mohammed Usman to win this fight. Do I like him to win by knockout? Honestly, I don't know. Because once Usman does get you to the ground, he doesn't really look to finish the fight. When, I know he was tired in the Tafa fight, but when he had Tafa down, it's not like he was doing the most damage down there, right? So it's a tough pick, at least on the stoppage, if there's going to be a stoppage or not. I am going to ever so slightly say second round TKO for Mohammed Usman. I think he's going to win it on ground strikes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wins a decision. And honestly, again, if Mohammed Usman is not able to find a takedown against Jake Collier, because Jake Collier has not been taken down yet as a heavyweight. I know a lot of heavyweights don't wrestle. You have to go to the elite of the weight class to find the wrestlers. I'm looking at Curtis Blades. I'm looking on, grappler and Jaitin Almeida. I'm looking at Sergey Spivak. I'm looking at, that's kind of it. I'm probably blanking right now, but I mean, Tom Aspinall can wrestle too, right? Well, obviously John Jones, but again, the lower heavyweights usually just go out there and swing. Usman's one of the guys who can wrestle. I think he is going to give a tougher fight to Jake Collier. I think Muhammad Usman wins. He gets it done by second round TKO. On to our next fight here. Big favorite for Jacob Malkoun in this fight against Cody Brundage. It makes sense. It makes 100% sense, because Cody Brundage is a guy who's 1-3 in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. He's 2-4. Jacob Malkoun, what he does well. He goes in there, he says, let's wrestle, and he's going to lay on you for 15 minutes, basically. That's what he's done. That's what Malkoun has attempted in every single one of his fights, except for the Phil Hawes fight where he got knocked out right away. But that's what Jacob Malkoun's going to do to you. He's going to go in there, he's going to wrestle. I know Cody Brundage is not the worst wrestler, obviously, in his fight against Cedric Dumas. He didn't really do much in that fight, but what he was trying to do was trying to wrestle SD Dumas. The Michal Elzolshejek fight, that's what Brundage was attempting to do before, of course, Elzolshejek put him on his back and knocked him out, right? Brundage will try to go out there, he will try to wrestle you. The fight that does kind of stick out for me, though, and I think that will kind of swing the pick and kind of tell you who's going to win this fight, I think it's going to be Jacob Malkoun at -485. He's the biggest favorite on this card. I think it's because you look at the Nick Maximov-Cody Brundage fight. Now, Jacob Malkoun's last fight, I know MMA math doesn't work like this because MMA math is stupid, but we're going to use its example right here. Jacob Malkoun's last fight was against Nick Maximov. That was a year ago. Grasso and Arujau were in the main event. That was before Alexei Grasso was the world champion. However, Jacob Malkoun went in there and he dominated Nick Maximov wrestling. He took Maximov down 9 times, had him down for 8 minutes of control. That's what he did to him the entire fight. When Cody Brundage fought Nick Maximov, and I know that was Brundage on short notice going into this fight, his UFC debut against another guy's making his UFC debut in Maximov, one of Nate Diaz's guys over there in Stockton. Maximov went in there and beat Brundage down on the ground. Now, again, didn't really strike with him at all, didn't really, try to finish the fight once the fight was on the ground either, but that's what Brundage got beat on the ground by Maximov because Maximov was taking advantage of his wrestling. If Maximov's able to do that to Cody Brundage, I think Jacob Malkoun's going to be the way better wrestler. Obviously, Malkoun is known for being Robert Whittaker's training partner. That's kind of just his claim to fame, honestly. But I think he's so much better than Brundage here. Brundage is a guy, again, he's got 2 wins in the UFC. The wins will be Dalcha Lujanbula with the guillotine choke and then Tresean Gore with the big overhand right where he set him down in Gore's second fight in the UFC. That's good. Honestly, I don't think Brundage is the worst. However, in a fight like this, Malkoun, I just think is so much better grappling-wise and wrestling-wise. On the feet, sure, I think that maybe I would take Brundage, even though, again, Brundage was knocked out by Elzolshejek. But again, Michal Elzolshejek is really good for the weight class. Truly, I do think Elzolshejek is solid. But again, you just look at this fight matchup-wise. Malkoun is so much better. Malkoun is the way better fighter wrestling-wise. What is Brundage able to do? He's not going to be able to find Malkoun's neck like he did to Dalcha Lujanbula because Lujanbula, again, just popped up. Neck was right there. Brundage sunk in a guillotine and won the fight. That's not going to happen. Malkoun's not going to put himself in a bad position in this fight. Again, I'll tell you what this fight's going to be. It's kind of like every single Jacob Malkoun fight. It is a boring 15-minute decision, and Malkoun will wrestle him, and Malkoun will lay on him for 15 minutes. Jacob Malkoun will win the fight. He's at -485 for a reason. Malkoun wins the fight by unanimous decision. Okay, next up, you've got a veteran here in the Dirty Bird at Tim Means, taking on Andrea Fialho, 2 guys who need to win, 2 guys who likely, if they don't win this fight, are out of the UFC. For Andrea Fialho, 3-fight losing streak. For Tim Means, 3-fight losing streak. Now, for Means, he can go the honorable route, he can just retire. For Andrea Fialho, he's 29 years old, he probably does not go that route. He will probably end up back in the PFL, likely, right? But this is the fight for both these guys that they have to win. For Tim Means, I get it. He probably will retire, win or lose, I think, for this fight. Even though they couldn't do the guy a favor and put him in front of a crowd, they had to put him in front of 80 people at the UFC Apex, where his family probably can't even get tickets. But because of course you got to charge $2,000 a ticket for those. But he's taking on Andrea Fialho. Now, when Fialho came in the UFC, this is a guy who comes in beginning of 2022, loses his first fight to Michel Pereira. All right, it's gonna happen. He goes 15 minutes with Pereira. It's on short notice. Nothing wrong with that. He comes back, he knocks out Miguel Baeza. Now, that's still when Baeza had some steam behind him. Now he kind of doesn't, but it's fine. That's when Baeza was still kind of hyped up as a prospect. And after that, he comes back, he knocks out Cameron Van Camp. That fight was a mismatch, UFC 274. He comes back the very next month. He says, I want to fight on every single pay-per-view card, fights in Singapore, gets dropped and knocked out against Jake Matthews in the second round. Then he comes back, he loses to Muslim Salikov on the fight night card that ended up being main evented by Kenny Nzechukwu and Ion Kutelaba. Then after that, he comes back. Don't know why they gave him Joaquin Buckley. Buckley went in there and head kicked him in the face and knocked him out. So Fialho's on a 3-fight losing streak where he's been knocked down all 3 of those fights. Let's look at Tim Means' losing streak. It starts with a win over Nicholas Dalby. Then he comes back. He gets doused by Kevin Holland in the second round. Then he loses to Max Payne Griffin by split decision. Then Alex Morono goes in there and submits him. So again, for Means, it's been the grappling that's kind of beat him. Obviously, in the Max Griffin fight, you saw some grappling in that, but Griffin knocks him down in the first round. Griffin does enough to win 2 of those rounds. Of course, you think you give Means at the second, and then the third, of course, goes to Max Griffin because Max Griffin went in there and wrestled him in that third round. So you got 2 varying guys who, again, for Means, he was getting boxed up by Kevin Holland in their first round of their fight in, I believe, San Antonio. I think it was Austin, Texas, on the Cater Emmett card. And then, of course, Holland drops to a Darce and submits him after Means tries to take him down. And then the Morono fight, again, Means takes him down. He ends up getting submitted. So Means, again, has been beat in terms of grappling recently. For Fialho, he has been beat in terms of striking. Now, the funny thing about this is, I think for Means, he's going to want to try to grapple in this fight, and for Fialho, he's going to try to want to strike in this fight. Both the ways these guys have lost recently are the ways they're going to have to win this fight. Because I don't think Tim Means can go out there and outstrike Andrea Fialho. I think he can go out there and I think he can try to wrestle him and try to take him down. That's where he's going to have his best advantage and his best chance to win the fight. And then for Andrea Fialho, he's going to have to strike with Tim Means. I don't think Tim Means can knock out Fialho. I don't think he's got the power. Means has never been that one-shot knockout guy. He's been more of a volume guy who's going to beat you over time and he's going to break you. That's not the type of fights that Fialho's been losing. Fialho has been losing one-shot knockouts, again, against power punchers. Tim Means is not the power puncher to beat him. So for Fialho, it's a really good opportunity for him. It really is, because this is a fight, again, where Fialho can come in there, Fialho can sit on his punches, and really try to put down Tim Means. For Tim Means, again, it's going to have to be the grappling out of him that's going to win this fight. Fialho has been taken down a couple times in the UFC, 60% takedown defense rate. He hasn't really been held down. Buckley took him down a couple times, really couldn't hold him down. Muslim Salikov took him down, but again, didn't really hold him down for that much. And then Michel Pereira took him down for a whole 30 seconds back at UFC 270 in Anaheim. So I don't really think the grappling is going to play too much of a factor in this fight for Tim Means. He is 10 years older than Fialho, and I know, again, it's tough picking a guy in Andrea Fialho who has been knocked out in his last 3 fights. He's been knocked out in all 3 of them. I know that is difficult. Still, though, I'm going to take him to win. Matchup-wise, this fight does favor him a lot. I don't think Means is able to wrestle him. I think Means has been in a lot of fights. This will be around fight number, 48 for the guy. He's been in a bunch of fist fights. I think Fialho is able to go in there. I think Fialho is able to blitz him. I think Fialho is able to find the chin. So I think Andrea Fialho is actually going to get back in the win column here. The guy does have power. That is undeniable. He does leave his chin up to be hit a lot, and he does get into firefights. Again, though, Tim Means will not be the guy to knock him out. I don't think Means stands with Fialho for 15 minutes and eventually puts him away. That's why I'm going to go with Andrea Fialho to win, because I just don't see the pathway to victory for Tim Means. I don't think this fight stays standing for 15 minutes without Fialho finding the knockout, and I don't think Means is really able to execute with the wrestling. So give me Andrea Fialho to win this fight. He's going to get it done by first round knockout. Getting back in the win column and staying in the UFC, and unfortunately for Tim Means, I do believe that will be it for him as a professional fighter. Okay, on to our next one. Daniel Argueta gets the fight here against Miles Johns. Now for Argueta, you get the same kind of situation that you had in the Daniel Lacerda and Edgar Chairez fight last night. That was the premature stoppage on that fight. Again, Chris Tognoni stops the fight. He thought Lacerda was out, which for a split second, it kind of does look like he goes out. He has, the hand up, and then he just kind of drops it. It's the same kind of situation with Robbie Lawler and Ben Askren. Now, personally, I thought Lawler was out with the Ben Askren stoppage. It just kind of looked like he was. When you really slow this fight down, I think it was a little bit early. Because again, if you're Chris Tognoni, you got to move the hand a little bit of Daniel Lacerda to see if he's out or not. He didn't even do that. When Herb Dean stopped the fight against Robbie Lawler, again, with Robbie Lawler and Ben Askren, he did shake the hand. There was none of that when Tognoni did that against Lacerda, or the Lacerda and Edgar Chairez fight. But that's besides the point. I was just making the point that Dan Argueta's last fight, it was a quick stoppage when he lost to Ronnie Lawrence. First round finish for Lawrence ended up getting overturned, obviously. That fight, again, was on the Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier card. Before that, for Daniel Argueta, though, 1-1 in the UFC, comes in on short notice, takes on Damon Jackson after fighting a month before in LFA. He goes into that fight, he loses it by unanimous decision. Damon Jackson just is the better wrestler in that one. Again, it's an Argueta coming in on short notice. Damon Jackson is supposed to win that fight, and he does. After that, then, for Argueta, he gets Nick Aguirre. He beats him by unanimous decision. Aguirre's a guy, again, that was a fight made out for Daniel Argueta to win. He wins every single round of that fight. It's on the Strickland Imavov card. That opens up the year in January. Again, it's a fight that was made for Argueta to win. Argueta is a very talented wrestler. He's good. He is a good wrestler who's got a lot of strength on the ground. He'll be taking on a guy, Miles Johns here, who Johns will be the underdog. He's 13-2. His last fight, beating Vince Morales, the fight that sticks out, though, the guy lost at John Castaneda. I don't think Castaneda is all that great. Castaneda at the time was 18-5. He is now 3-2 in the UFC. Again, he beat Munin Gafarov. Gafarov, though, is he great either? I don't think he is. I don't know. Castaneda is an interesting fighter. For Miles Johns, though, again, losing to Castaneda, he's 4-2. The only other loss being Mario Bautista. Wins over Kevin Natividad, win over Anderson Dos Santos, win over Vince Morales, and I'll actually go back to 2019, where he beat Cole Smith by split decision back again in September of 2019, pre-pandemic. For Miles Johns, he does have a lot of power. He went on that 2 knockout streak where he knocked out Kevin Natividad, then he knocked out Anderson Dos Santos after that in Houston, Texas on the Lewis and Gane card. The guy's got pop for being a bantamweight. He does, right? That will always be there for Miles Johns. And do I think Dan Argueta is going to stick around and strike with him all that much? Hell no, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Argueta knows what he wants to do in this fight. He's going to try to wrestle. Right? When you look at what Miles Johns has been able to do, has he been tested much in the wrestling? He has, kind of, and Miles Johns has been really good against the takedown. At 92% takedown defense rate for Miles Johns so far in the UFC. However, again, Castaneda found a way to get him to the ground, found a way. It was more of the knockdown, but still was able to get him down that third round, knocked him down, then finished with the arm triangle. What will Dan Argueta do? The question for this fight, and this is what this fight is based off of, can Daniel Argueta take down Miles Johns? Because if he can't take down Miles Johns, Johns is going to win the fight. If he is able to take down Johns, then that changes everything. Because again, then it's the threat of the takedown. And again, Daniel Argueta is going to have to be, I believe, the second guy in the UFC and the first fighter since 2019, Miles Johns' debut, to take him down. Do you think Argueta is able to do that? Personally, I think he will be able to. I think that's how good Argueta is. I think it will be a tough fight, though, because again, it's not going to be... He's not going to go 1 for 1. He's not going to be one takedown, boom. Argueta's going to be able to get it every single time in the fight. I don't think that's going to be able to. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think, again, Argueta's going to have to shoot a couple times to get it. He's not going to get it on his first attempt. He might not even get it on his second attempt, but he's going to have to keep trying, obviously. I think his striking game isn't on par with Johns. I think Johns does have a better striking game, even though I think Argueta can remain competitive with him. I do think, again, Johns does have the better striking game, and Johns definitely does have more power than Daniel Argueta. But again, it's not to say Daniel Argueta cannot compete with him. I think I think Argueta is going to be able to compete with him striking-wise, just like how I think Miles Johns will be able to compete with Daniel Argueta wrestling-wise. But again, I think the pick is based off of do you think Miles Johns can stuff the takedown of Argueta? Personally, I don't think so. I think Daniel Argueta is able to find his way towards the takedown eventually. I don't think it's going to be, again, just a walk in the park for the guy, but I think his pressure, oh God, my voice, his pressure and his pace, and just, again, what Argueta, the pace that Argueta is able to put on Miles Johns, I think is going to be too much. I think Argueta is going to get to him. I think Argueta will put him into some tough spots. I think Daniel Argueta is going to win the fight. I think over time he is going to get him. Do I think he's going to find the submission? John Castaneda was able to do it. There's a chance Argueta does it as well. I'm not going to take it, though. I'm going to take Argueta by decision. I feel like it's the safer pick. I don't feel great about him finding a submission. So yeah, give me Daniel Argueta to win this fight by unanimous decision. Okay. Firefight next up, we've got Charles Jourdain taking on Ricardo Ramos as we go on to the main card for Charles Jourdain, currently 14-6-1 in his professional career, coming off that win over Chrome Gracie, where Chrome Gracie just looked horrible. He did not look anything like the Chrome Gracie that fought Cub Swanson in Florida in 2019. But Jourdain now gets a fight against Ricardo Ramos here for Ramos, coming off that win over Danny Chavez back in Austin in June of 2022. That's been the problem with Ricardo Ramos. He just doesn't fight all that often. He has not fought in 2023. He has not fought in over a year and a half but now he is back and he's getting a tough guy in Charles Jourdain. I've been high on Jourdain for a very long time, but again, Ricardo Ramos, you look at the big spinning back elbow win. This is going to be a good fight because you know Jourdain always brings it. Jourdain is going to be in your face. He's looking for the kill. Again, you look at his fight that he has because Andre Ewell at the very end, he hits him with the "This is Sparta" kick. Jourdain is a very fun fighter to watch. He's always in fun fights. He's such a good striker. This is going to be a good one. Now, who's the better striker? I think it is Charles Jourdain. I think Jourdain does get hit a little bit more, but I think as a whole, I think Jourdain is a little bit better. But again, Ricardo Ramos does have the power. Again, you've seen him twice now with the spinning back elbow finish, the win over Chavez, and then the win over, who was it? Amian Zahabi back in 2017. Ramos has been in the UFC for a very long time. Made his debut back in 2017 over Minochi Tanaka over in Houston, Texas the night before Super Bowl 51. Dennis Bermudez and Korean Zombie in the main event. Again, Ramos has been around for a very long time. He's fought some decent guys. He's got a win over Bill Algeo. He's got a loss to Leron Murphy, a loss to Zubair Tukhugov, but again, coming off the win over Danny Chavez. We'll see what we get in this fight. Again, I do think you get a striking affair. I don't really see much grappling happening in this fight. I know Ramos does have the capability of getting the fight down there, and he is a pretty good grappler. However, I do like Charles Jourdain's defensive grappling enough to the point where, defensive wrestling to the point where I do think he can keep this fight standing. I know for Jourdain, 48% takedown defense rate in the UFC. He was taken down a lot by Nathaniel Wood and Shane Burgos, where he did have his success was on the ground. But again, in that fight, I think a lot of people made the case that Jourdain should have won that fight. When Jourdain is standing, he does do damage. So I think the same thing applies to this fight. Again, I think he will do damage against Ricardo Ramos, and I think it's going to be a tough fight for Ramos to win as a whole. I think just because of what Jourdain's able to do in the striking game, I think he's going to really touch up on Ramos. But I think he's going to really be able to find his strikes, do damage. And again, it's going to be a firefight because Jourdain will always force you in these crazy wars. You saw that in the Marcelo Rojo fight. You saw it in the Marcelo Rojo fight. You saw that in the Julian Rosa fight. Andre Ewell fight. Shane Burgos will win that fight with standing. And Jourdain wanted to strike. Burgos didn't want to. Nathaniel Wood was kind of a war, and he tried to make it a war against Crum Gracie, but Gracie wasn't really trying to engage in something like that with Charles Jourdain. But again, that's the style of fight that Jourdain will make you fight. That's the style of fight that he will make Ricardo Ramos fight. Ramos is a good fighter, though. 7-3 in the UFC. Jourdain is 5-5. I just feel like right now, I think the fight favors Jourdain to win. So give me Charles Jourdain to win this fight. He'll get it done by... I'm going to take TKO. I think Charles Jourdain wins it. I think it'll be a late finish for him, a third round TKO. Because again, Jourdain will get you in this fight, and he will make you fight him, and he'll get you in an all-out war. Jourdain is going to bring Ramos into the war, and Jourdain is going to win. He'll get it done by a third round TKO. Charles Jourdain with the winner representing Quebec, Canada. All right, next up on the main card, you have got Bryan Battle taking on AJ Fletcher. You've got, again, another former Ultimate Fighter winner. You've got him and Muhammad Usman both in this card, who both won the Ultimate Fighter. Bryan Battle takes on AJ Fletcher in this fight. Battle's going to be a slight favorite. I understand why. He's coming off of a huge knockout finish win over Gabe Green. He beats him in 14 seconds at the Spectrum Center. I think that's what that's still called in Charlotte, North Carolina. He knocks out Gabe Green. That card was early in the morning my time, but I think that fight was like at 9 in the morning from where I was watching California. But Bryan Battle goes in there and head kicks Gabe Green in the first round in 14 seconds. Now, could not get a performance of the night bonus, or didn't head kick him, sorry. Hit him with a right hook. Now, Gabe Green, I was thinking of the Takashi Sato fight where he knocked him out with a head kick. However, okay, Gabe Green fought that fight so stupid. He goes in there, just blitzes Bryan Battle, has no regard for human life, and boom, gets kind of right hooked and gets put out. Like, it was a horrible fight strategy for Gabe Green. I think he was just excited maybe that he got to fight in front of a crowd. I think, no, he fought Ian Machado Gary in front of a crowd. I don't know what he was doing. Yeah, he fought a horrible fight, and Bryan Battle sat, ducked, boom, counter right, puts him to sleep. 14 seconds. Now, again, could not win a knockout in the night bonus because he missed weight in that fight. Again, that fight was at 170 pounds. This one, again, will be at 170 pounds as well. So you've got Green and Fletcher here in this fight. Again, Bryan Battle and Fletcher. Gabe Green, of course, who Bryan Battle just beat. Battle, comes in the UFC, of course, off the Ultimate Fighter. He beats Andre Petroski. He's definitely his best win because Petroski's now a guy who has slowly gone up to 5-0 in the UFC. Like, watch out for Andre Petroski. I know they're not giving him the toughest guys, but Wellington Turman and Gerald Mearshart back-to-back are good wins. But of course, for Battle, beats Petrosky on the Ultimate Fighter. He beats Gilbert Urbina because Gore gets hurt, so he beats Urbina in the final. Then he fights Gore again, he beats him, he brings out the trophy with him, which is kind of funny. Then he head kicks Takashi Sato, loses to Hanat Fakhretdinov, but you saw what Fakhretdinov was able to do to Kevin Lee, and Kevin Lee's reemergence in the UFC. Obviously, Kevin Lee, I guess, is now retired, but you saw what, again, Renat Fakhretdinov was able to do to him in that fight. And then Gabe Green, of course, he knocks out Gabe Green, does Brian Battle. He'll be taking on a guy here in the Ghost, AJ Fletcher, who is 10-2, but 1-2 in the UFC after winning by flying knee knockout in the Contender Series. He comes back, he loses a fight by unanimous decision to Matthew Semi the Jedi Semmelsberger, then loses to Angelosa, who Angelosa, after the Reese McKee fight, looking pretty good. I don't know. Michael Bisping was really hyping up Angelosa after that fight. And then after the Angelosa fight, he beats Themba Gorimbo by guillotine choke in the second round. Obviously, Gorimbo, a fighter who since then has caught the attention of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So good for MMA Master Zone in Themba Gorimbo. But again, Fletcher in his last fight picks up his first UFC win by submitting Gorimbo with a guillotine choke. I think this is an incredibly tough fight for AJ Fletcher, especially because when you look at this, you got a guy who's 1-2 in the UFC taking on a guy who's 4-1 in the UFC, and for Brian Battle, Ultimate Fighter winner 2, his one loss, the guy's 22-2, who has not lost a fight since 2014 in Fakhretdinov, who gets Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos next in Brazil. I think that's a good fight for Fakhretdinov. I honestly think Hanat Fakhretdinov is a guy that nobody wants to fight, who's going to eventually make his way up that weight class. He is a tough guy to beat, and Brian Battle did go 15 minutes with them, given he did not do a goddamn thing against Hanat Fakhretdinov in that fight. He lost 30-25, but that's how good Hanat Fakhretdinov is. Again, that guy is a really good wrestler with really good sambo. He is a tough guy to beat, and Brian Battle did go 15 minutes with him. I guess his claim to fame can be his ally Quinta, Habib Nurmagomedov moment. He went the distance with Hanat Fakhretdinov. We will see what Fakhretdinov is able to do over the course of his UFC career, but of course Fakhretdinov's a guy now who's 3-0 in the UFC. I guess he did go the distance with Andreas Michailidis, making my point not as cool anymore, but still, I still think Battle's really good. I think he is good. Now, I just think it's a tough fight for Fletcher, because what is Fletcher able to do in this fight? We've seen him outstruck by Angelosa. You saw him, he went to the wrestling in Semmelsberger, but Semmelsberger was able to win moments, and Semmelsberger was able to win moments on the ground as well. That was a back and forth fight, a pretty good fight, honestly, on the undercard for Santos and Ankalaev. But for Brian Battle, again, I think it's going to have to be the wrestling on AJ Fletcher that is going to win him the fight. Now, guys have been able to do it. Tresean Gore was able to take him down. Gilbert Urbina was able to take him down. And Hanat Fakhretdinov was able to take him down as well. I think the opportunity for a win for AJ Fletcher is very possible in this fight. I think Fletcher has got a very good chance to do it. And again, it is a simple game plan for the Fletcher camp. It's going to have to be the grappling and the wrestling is going to have to win in the fight. Because on the feet, I think Brian Battle's striking game has gotten so much better. Again, the Sato knockout, his last 2 wins are by knockout. The Sato head kick knockout in 44 seconds and the Gabe Green counter right hook finish in 14 seconds. Again, his striking is getting better progressively. And I think that was a big thing with him, at least on the Ultimate Fighter. It was Battle's just kind of a grappler and a wrestler. He can't really strike all that well. And he went out there and he, again, the choke and the finish over Andre Petrosky in the Ultimate Fighter semifinals keeps on looking better and better. That is a tremendous win. After that, he beats Urbina, and again, Urbina takes him down, but he's able to get the submission on Urbina. Gore does find moments where he beats him on the ground, and that's kind of where Battle kind of comes in as his own as a striker, where he does outstrike Tresean Gore, and then, of course, again, can't talk enough about the 2 knockout finishes over Sato and Green. For Fletcher, again, I think if this fight stays on the feet, I think Battle will eventually get to him. In terms of a grappling affair, I think Fletcher is slightly better wrestling-wise, but all around grappling and jiu-jitsu and all of that coming into effect, I think that's where Battle is better as well. So all around, I think Brian Battle is the better fighter. I think if you get this fight on the ground, you get on the feet, I wouldn't be too concerned with Brian Battle anywhere this fight does go. I am going to take Brian Battle to win this fight. I'm going to take him to win by knockout. I think it's kind of again, his last 2 wins have been by finish. I think this one will be by finish as well. I think Battle goes in there, honestly. I think he kind of melts him. I think Fletcher's not able to get a takedown. I think Battle's able to keep it standing. I think this is going to be a pretty quick finish. Brian Battle by first round knockout. Also, AJ Fletcher in his Tapology picture, it looks like he's seen a ghost. That's his nickname. Just saying, just look, when you go to the pick screen on Tapology, AJ Fletcher, again, he looks like he's seen a damn ghost. However, Brian Battle's going to win this fight. He's going to get it done by first round knockout. On to the next. It is the rematch you did not know you wanted, and you probably still don't want it, but you have Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson-Gomez. Yeah, I didn't quite remember this fight actually happened, but believe it or not, it was a main event in the UFC Apex in 2021. It was, okay, oh, what was the original main event for that card? I know Cowboy was the co-main event, I think, against Nico Price? Yeah, what was the original main event? It was originally supposed to be Cowboy Diego Sanchez on the card, originally Corey Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw. That was the original main event on that card. But again, it turned into Rodriguez versus Waterson-Gomez at 125 pounds. Now they will rematch at 115 pounds. Why? Like, seriously, what changes in this fight? What changes? Now, I thought Michelle Waterson beat Luana Pinheiro on her last fight in Miami at UFC 287. I thought Waterson did enough to win that fight, honestly. Like, go watch that fight and tell me Waterson doesn't win rounds 1 and 3. Michelle Waterson should be coming off a win. However, you go from her fighting Pinheiro to her fighting a fighter even higher in the weight class in Marina Rodriguez. Now, I understand Marina Rodriguez is coming off 2 losses, and they've been bad losses. Vina Jandiroba just kind of melted her in terms of wrestling. And then Amanda Lemos went in there and finished her in the 3rd round. Again, that fight wasn't all that impressive and it wasn't all that fun, but until Lemos was able to get the finish in the main event in November of 2022. But don't forget, Marina Rodriguez went on a pretty good win streak. I mean, seriously, she went on a pretty damn good win streak after losing to Carla Esparza in a fight that eventually again got Carla Esparza #1 contenders fight. She beats Amanda Ribas on a main card for pay-per-view, on a Conor McGregor card. She beats Michelle Waterson. She beats Mackenzie Dern in the main event, beats Yang Xiaonan, who is likely fighting for the world championship next. And then she loses to Amanda Lemos, loses to Vina Jandiroba, and now here we are, right? So I still think Rodriguez is good. I think she's got a win over Yang Xiaonan, who's likely fighting for the world title next in China. Mackenzie Dern, who, has a fight against Jessica Andrade coming up, where it looks like, again, that's a fight that, if Dern can win, I think she puts herself probably another fight away from the belt. Her and Tatiana Suarez would be a nice scrap, I'm not going to lie, but we'll see if we get that fight. But again, Waterson-Gomez, Rodriguez is still very capable. She just ran into Lemos, who ended up fighting for the title, and then she just got out-wrestled by Vina Jandiroba. Waterson's not going to out-wrestle her. She got 1 takedown in their first fight. That was 5 rounds. This one will be 3. I think nothing changes from that fight. Given it was at 125, Michelle Waterson is a natural 105-pounder. But still, I don't think anything changes from that fight that happened, at 125 pounds in 2021. Seriously, I don't know what else is there to say. Like, yeah, Waterson's got the karate background. She's sidekicks. Like, she's got decent kicks, but Rodriguez has got better hands. It was ever so apparent in the first fight that Marina Rodriguez was the better striker. Nothing from that first fight has changed since then. I know Rodriguez has lost some fights, but she's also won some fights as well. Michelle Waterson has not won still after that Rodriguez fight. She's lost to Lemos and Pinheiro, even though I think she beat Luana Pinheiro, but that's besides the point. Nothing has changed. Marina Rodriguez still wins. She won back in 2021. She wins in 2023. Marina Rodriguez gets back in the win column. Wins by unanimous decision. Maybe that's it for Waterson. I don't know, but yeah, Rodriguez wins by decision. Nothing much else to say. Okay, so Danny Ige refuses to take easy fights. I mean, the guy continues to take the hardest fights possible. I mean, the dude's a warrior, and now he's going to get Bryce Mitchell, who is 15-1, who does have 1 loss now, being to the likely next title challenger in Ilia Topuria, but Dan Ige versus Bryce Mitchell is next. Ooh, that's a good fight. That's a really good fight, because Dan Ige was on a 3-fight losing streak, losing to the likes of the Korean Zombie, Josh Emmett, Movsar Evloev. Then he beats Damon Jackson by finishing him in the 2nd round. Then beats Nate the Train at UFC 289 by unanimous decision. Now he runs into Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell, who is coming off his first career loss. We mentioned it earlier, the loss to Ilia Topuria, but it's undeniable what the guy's able to do. I think his best performance to date is Edson Barbosa. Barbosa obviously is next in line for a main event spot against Super Sodiq Yusuff coming up in a couple weeks. But Mitchell was able to go in there and absolutely just dominate Edson Barbosa. He knocks down Barbosa in that fight, but really just holds Barbosa down throughout the entirety of that fight. Obviously, Barbosa has come back. He knocked out Billy Quarantillo, and again, he finds himself in a main event on October the 14th against Sodiq Yusuff. But Again, a really good performance of Bryce Mitchell. That's his last win. He was booked against Movsar Evloev, fight fell through. Booked against Topuria, obviously had the fight and lost. Booked against JSP, Jonathan Pierce did not fight JSP. Fight, of course, fell through. Then booked against Evloev again, fight fell through. So hopefully Mitchell finally gets to fight this fight. I saw on Twitter that Bryce Mitchell, I think his ex-girlfriend set his farm on fire or something. I don't know what happened. Something like that happened. I think. I don't know if that might have been a parody, or I think that was real. I don't know. Anyways, Bryce Mitchell's fighting Dan Ige. Now, this fight, again, it's going to be dependent on if Dan Ige gets stuff the takedowns out of Bryce Mitchell. Now, okay, Movsar Evloev fought Dan Ige, and Movsar Evloev found some success wrestling with Dan Ige, primarily in the third round. That's where he found most of his success. In the first and second, yeah, he did get Ige down, but did he hold Ige down? Not entirely. Ige was able to remain competitive. That third round is really the one that, again, Evloev really pulled away from. If you look back at Dan Ige's 5-round main event against Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, in June of 2021, that was the fight that got Zombie the world title fight next, where Korean Zombie wins that fight. Now, it's a competitive fight striking, but where Zombie really pulls away is actually with the wrestling. Korean Zombie goes in there, puts on the wrestling shoes, and out-wrestles Dan Ige, and that's where he wins the swing rounds to get himself the title shot against Volkanovski next. Now, obviously, that didn't go well for Zombie, and his fight against Max Holloway didn't go well either. Again, Korean Zombie's a legend. Glad he retired. Didn't want to see him take any more damage, but again, that's how Ige lost the fight to Zombie. Josh Emmett fight was primarily fought on the feet. Again, a very close fight that you can make the case maybe Ige, it was a very close fight. I think a lot of people thought that Ige might have done enough. It was a very close fight. That Ige Emmett fight at UFC 269 is really close. And then, of course, in Ige's fight against Damon Jackson, Jackson obviously doesn't get him down. Ige outstrikes him and knocks him out. And the Nate Landwehr fight again, striking fight. Landwehr tries 4 times to take him down. He can't do it. Ige wins. Now, again, Nate Landwehr is now on the wrestling level of Bryce Mitchell. Movsar Evloev, you can make the case, is on the wrestling level of Bryce Mitchell, and maybe better. But what will happen in this fight? Because again, Bryce Mitchell, you saw what he did to Edson Barbosa. Is Dan Ige a better defensive wrestler than Barbosa? I'd say so. I think he is. But we'll see. This is a very interesting fight. Obviously, again, Bryce Mitchell will have the wrestling advantage. On the feet, again, I think this fight is big on if Bryce Mitchell can remain at least competitive striking-wise with Dan Ige, to the point where, again, he can eventually close distance and get the takedown. So I think Mitchell, again, he's just got to remain competitive on the feet. If he's able to do that just a little bit, to the point where how Movsar was against Ige, but even more, he doesn't have to be that competitive. If he can just, not just get wobbled with everything Ige throws at him, which I don't think so. Again, Mitchell's got a pretty solid chin on him. I know, again, Topuria was able to knock him down, but Ilia Topuria has both the grappling and the power. The guy is really the complete package at 145 pounds and would be looked at as a guy who, again, could be able to fight for, be the world champion next. However, he's fighting in the same weight class as Alexander Volkanovski, which just makes it really tough on him. So that's how good Topuria is. So I really don't take anything away from Mitchell losing the Topuria fight. Again, though, the problem is in this one, is he able to get Ige down? Is he able to hold him down? I think he is. I think Mitchell is able to do that. It's a stylistically tough matchup for Dan Ige, considering he's just fighting a wrestler in Bryce Mitchell who's got cardio, who will put on a pace, who will be persistent in trying to get that takedown, and that's what he will do for 15 minutes straight. That's all Bryce Mitchell is looking to do. He is looking to get in there and wrestle. I think that's what he's able to do. I think he goes out there and out-wrestles Dan Ige. Bryce Mitchell gets it done. He'll win by unanimous decision. On to the main event. At the lightweight division, you've got Rafael Fiziev in his second main event, taking on, in his second main event as well, Mateusz Gamrot. Now, Fiziev wins his first main event against Rafael dos Anjos, I think a year ago. Gamrot actually did win his main event as well. He beat Arman Tsarukyan in a fight that a lot of people thought Tsarukyan won. So both these guys undefeated in UFC main events. You've got the former KSW champion in the gamer Mateusz Gamrot taking on Rafael Fiziev. Gamrot's coming off a fight at UFC 285 that a lot of people thought he did not win. A lot of people thought that he lost to the tarantula Jalen Turner. I understand that. Jalen Turner went out there. He knocked down Gamrot in the first round, basically giving him the first round. The second round's the round where it's some give it to Gamrot. The third round's Gamrot's round. It's the second round. It's the round that's very close. I think Jalen Turner won the fight. I think he did. I think Turner won the second and the first. I think Gamrot obviously won the third. But here we are. Gamrot gets the nod. Again, Jalen Turner came back, fought, won Dan Hooker. He loses to Dan Hooker, so now he's on a 2-fight losing streak because he loses to Gamrot at 285. But Gamrot is coming off a win. He was booked in a spot at UFC 280 against Beneil Dariush. He loses the fight to Beneil Dariush. Dariush kind of showed in that fight there are levels to this game, and he went out there and he put a pace on Gamrot. He knocks down Gamrot. Gamrot was shooting for takedowns. He got a couple, but again, Dariush was just able to all around do enough to win the fight. Obviously, when you look before that, Gamrot beats Arman Tsarukyan. It's a close fight. Give Gamrot the win. He beats Carlos Diego Ferreira, where I think the official diagnosis on that fight is that he broke Ferreira's ribs in that fight, I think, or was it ribs? I don't know, because it was a knee to the back. I don't know. Diego Ferreira said no more. Again, Mateusz Gamrot picks up the win. He goes in his fight against Jeremy Stevens. He submits him with a Kimura. The guy's good. The guy's really good. Now, again, against these higher level guys, though, Mateusz Gamrot is going to be looking to wrestle. That's what he's going to be looking to do, because that's where he will have his best advantage. And especially in a fight against Rafael Fiziev, I like Gamrot's striking game. I don't think it's horrible, but I think that's where he's going to have to go. He's going to have to go in the wrestling in this fight, because, again, Fiziev, a very talented striker, a Tiger Muay Thai striker. Again, the guy, I say it every time he fights, the guy isn't just a Tiger Muay Thai striker. He is a coach at Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand. The guy is that good. Like, that's how good of a striker the guy is. Now, the Justin Gaethje fight, some people thought Fiziev won. I thought Gaethje did enough to win the fight. Obviously, Gaethje pulled away in the third round. I thought Gaethje won on damage in that fight. Sure, Justin Gaethje's the BMF now. He's likely next in line for a world championship fight. He will likely be fighting the winner of Makhachev and Oliveira. That's how good Justin Gaethje is. But Fiziev holds his own in that fight. Again, Gaethje did shoot a takedown in the third round. I mean, that was just cool seeing Gaethje actually get a takedown. He kind of just goes in there and just spears him. I know it's a professional wrestling term, but he kind of just went in there and just took him down at the end of the third round. But Fiziev's defensive wrestling has been really good. And that's going to be danger for Mateusz Gamrot. If Gamrot's not able to take Fiziev down, then you're forced in a striking fight with a guy like Fiziev, who is a very talented striker. The RDA fight, that's Fiziev's first main event. It wasn't that eventful. It really wasn't. And RDA kind of holds his own. Like, Dos Anjos was able to get takedowns. He shot 16 takedowns in that fight. He only gets 2. But I think definitely the case that RDA might have been ahead on the scorecards before Fiziev gets the knockout in the 5th. It's a close fight. It really is. So we'll see what Gamrot's able to do in terms of wrestling in this fight. And then we'll see in terms of, once this fight's standing, how well will Gamrot do against Rafael Fiziev? Because again, RDA held his own. Gaethje obviously beat him. Brad Riddell, eventually Fiziev knocked him out. Bobby Green, I always go back to that fight and I always say, I think Bobby Green outstruck Rafael Fiziev. To this day, I will wave the flag that Bobby Green beat Rafael Fiziev. I truly think he did. I know I'm in the minority in that. A lot of people don't think that. I still think Bobby Green beat Rafael Fiziev. I still will go back and rewatch that fight, and I will still tell you that I think Bobby Green did enough to win that fight. However, that's besides the point. I think even if Gamrot's not able to get a takedown, I think he still can remain very competitive with Rafael Fiziev. Because again, you've seen guys like RDA and Bobby Green be still competitive with Fiziev striking-wise. So who's to say that, again, Mateusz Gamrot's not going to be able to be competitive? However, do I think he's going to win the fight? No, I don't think he's going to be able to. I think he still needs a takedown to win the fight. However, I think he can stay in the fight for a while until Fiziev will eventually knock him out. So that's why my pick in this fight is Rafael Fiziev to win this fight by 4th round TKO. Again, I think eventually Fiziev is going to get it, but I think Gamrot will put him into tough spots in this fight. I think Gamrot will find a takedown. I think he probably will find at least one takedown, but I don't think he'll be able to keep Fiziev down. And I think as the fight goes on, Fiziev will get better with his defensive wrestling. And again, Fiziev is going to sit down on his strikes. He will be more comfortable striking with Mateusz Gamrot because, again, I think Gamrot will stay competitive. I think Gamrot will have some of his moments. But if Jalen Turner's knocking down Mateusz Gamrot, I think Rafael Fiziev will be able to have that same success as well. But again, Fiziev sometimes a slow starter. I think it will take time for him to win this fight. But eventually, again, I think Rafael Fiziev will find that knockdown. I think he will finish it on the ground Rafael Fiziev will eventually find the knockout and eventually get the finish over Mateusz Gamrot. Fiziev wins the fight. He'll get it done late. I'll say late in the 4th round. Accumulation of damage. Rafael Fiziev picks up the victory by 4th round TKO. And folks, that will do it for our UFC Fight Night Fiziev versus Gamrot full card predictions. If you haven't yet, though, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. We do one of these every single week. We'll be back for Bellator 299 tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. Give folks for watching. Again, make sure that subscribe button down below for more. If you disagree with any of the picks, make sure to leave a comment down below. Again, leave a like, do all that. Thank you for watching, and Mamba forever.